All right, let me get the screen up here and present. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MusEd 195, what I call post-secondary general music. The course description. This course is designed for undergraduate non-majors to fulfill the fine arts credit requirement for the university. It is intended to be an alternative to the traditional music appreciation course. When I was an undergrad, I had a lot of non-major friends, as I'm sure we all did. And one of their favorite things to complain about when you tell them that you are a music major is, oh, that music appreciation class where we sit in class and just listen to songs that I've never heard of by people I've never heard of. And we have to go to like 4 or 5 concerts in the evening. And then we just write a lot of papers. And, you know, there's a textbook and everything. But, you know, just generally the attitude from most of, at least the people I talked to, was not really appreciative of the course. So that and reading what Faultley had to say about the music appreciation approach through listening kind of got me thinking about that exact situation that I'd heard of. And sort of that was what my inspiration was for creating this course as an alternative to that. It's based on the 1994 MENC national standards: singing, playing, improvising, composing, reading, notating, listening, evaluating, understanding in relation to history and culture, understanding in relation to other arts. Performance, improvisation, and composing are going to be the emphases for this course. So it's basically just going to be like a regular general music course that you would like take in elementary school, except for it's designed obviously for adults. So that would be the reason why it's an alternative to the other course. That course is more sedentary, it's listening, they go to concerts. This is more about performance, improvisation. You're going to create music in some way, either by performing it or by writing it yourself. And then of course, after you write it yourself, you can perform it. The end of this is a summative portfolio and evening performance of an ORF ensemble that we'll make. The ORF ensemble, this happens after the midterm for this course, where we create an ensemble of course, xylophones, metallophones, glockenspiels, recorders, singers, and unpitched percussion instruments. What I do in this case is I would divide the class up. We would determine who's going to be what specialties. People are going to be playing mallets, people are going to be playing unpitched percussion, people are playing recorders, and who are the singers going to be. That way they can specialize in their role within the class for the repertoire, and they would be able to master their parts better. They'll master their technique a little better, and they'll be able to apply that. The process will remain much the same, and then it's applying that same process over and over again for different repertoire. The course syllabus. Basically, I use Ball State as the paradigm for this. So instructor, obviously it's me, it's Mr. Clergett. My office is MU 602B. Obviously, there's not 6 floors in the MU building on Ball State's campus, but again, I used it as the paradigm. Office hours I put in there were 8 to 9, and then 1 to 2 on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So every day that would be in my office for 2 hours, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, or 1 in the afternoon. The course objectives, as I mentioned before, they're aligned with those 1994 MENC national standards. So we're going to be covering, just like I said before, singing, playing, composing, improvising, reading, notating, listening, evaluating, understanding in relation to other arts, understanding in relation to history and culture. So there is a music history component to the course, but it's not the primary focus. The primary focus, as you'll also see in the grading policy, is that it's exactly that. It's going to be where you see 50% of the grade is going to be performance related tasks, and I'll share some rubrics that go with that a little bit later on. Required materials: laptop or a suitable substitute, USB flash drive, a soprano recorder, which they can get for me for the old price of $3. Again, I use that as the example because that's what I bought mine for more than a decade ago, and it's still going. A 2-inch 3-ring binder to make the portfolio with, and 2 books of staff paper to do notation assignments that we would be doing during the class. My attendance policy is that you need to be there for every single class meeting. Please provide documentation if you have an exigent circumstance or some sort of emergency. If you're absent on a test or exam day, make an appointment with me to make it up. Essentially, provide the documentation, make an appointment with me, come see me like during my office hours, or I'll make you an outside appointment whenever I can find time to make up a playing test or something like that. Listening exam, those can be made up. Engagement policy, obviously, participation is important in a course where the majority of the grade comes from performance and performance related tasks. So I expect everybody to come to class, be engaged, participate. Yeah, we're going to do some singing, and I know that some people really don't. That's not their thing. But try it. The more you try it and over, you get better at it. And I used to not like singing myself, actually. I mean, I know, whoa, for a music major, how can you possibly be in that situation? But, the kiddos that I teach right now, they say they do the same thing. When I say, yeah, I was like you, I didn't used to like to sing. And they give me this wide-eyed stare, like, really, you're the music teacher and you didn't like to sing? What's with that? And, no, I mean, and then until I learned something about it and I realized that, that it's okay for me to sing. I kind of, it was kind of a gender thing with me. I kind of associated it with being, oh, girls sing, boys don't do that, which of course we all know is ridiculous. But, my 10-year-old mind wasn't really thinking straight on that one. But I learned to enjoy it. And again, I think that the students taking this course will as well, because that's something I'm going to help them with. I'm going to help them. I'm going to teach them that, and I'm going to help them to be able to get better at their playing and get better at their singing. So that's the engagement policy. I expect them to come to class. I expect them to do the work that I assign them to do outside of class. I expect them to practice while they're at class, to take advantage of that, because in many cases, especially when it comes to the mallet practice, they're not going to have access to those instruments outside of class. So I want them to be engaged when they're there. The academic honor policy, moving down onto this one, the academic honor policy is actually quite interesting actually quite simple, sorry, interesting and simple, but basically don't cheat. It's not worth it. I went into some more detail in the course syllabus than I will here, just to not belabor the point, that basically if you get caught plagiarizing, it's a 0 for the assignment, and you, me, and the dean have a meeting, and determined by whatever the university decides is going to be the consequence for you plagiarizing or cheating or doing any other type of dishonest academic work. That's what's going to happen, and I'll just abide by whatever the university says. Hey, this is what's going to happen. Not many opportunities to cheat in this class, to be quite honest. It's kind of hard to cheat on a playing test. Although I'm sure that there are some creative students out there that can figure out ways to do it, but especially since this course is also designed with non-COVID times in mind, where we're going to be face-to-face. They're going to have to come to the classroom. They're going to have to play physically in front of me. And so it's going to be hard, really, for them to do that. They're not going to be able to make a recording and doctor it up and use the technology to deceive me and then turn in somebody else's recording as their own. That would be one way to do it that I can think of. I mean, don't get any ideas from me. Okay, let's move on. Syllabus continued. Grading policy, performance related tasks are 50%. Exams are 20%. And notation assignments, 10%. Portfolio presentation at the end is 20%. The description of my course requirements, I mean, just like I said, it's that I do expect you to come in, participate, because that's the primary way that you're going to learn. Because these things are performance related. A lot of stuff we do is performance related. You're going to have to perform. So you're going to have to learn by doing, learning by doing. And this very much follows with my my philosophy, which is very Pestalozzian and also very cognitivist. I would say that, it's like, I want you doing it, build the schema. And in order to do that, I expect your engagement, and I expect you to come in, participate and perform. Obviously, be there for exam days, take your exams, do your best, turn all assignments in on time. I will accept late work. In all honesty, I'm kind of a softie that way. I do that now as an elementary general teacher. It's just not, I just don't think it's worth um, being such a stickler about it for my purposes anyway, especially with the little kiddos that I teach. If they turn in a notation assignment and it's a day late, especially on a 3-day rotation where I won't see them for another 2 days, if they show up at my door saying, Mr. Clerk, I'm so sorry, this was late, I'll take it and I'll probably give them full credit for it, especially if I can tell they did a good job and I can tell that they focused on it and I can tell that they, really put some effort into it. Then, okay, it's worth the work that you earned. You're going to earn the grade that you, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm getting a little sick. So that's one thing, be there to turn everything on time, to maintain a professional demeanor, and to maintain an attitude that is worthy of an undergraduate university student that's seeking a degree. I know that this course designed for non-majors who are just trying to fulfill that fine arts credit, but it's an alternative and it's supposed to be a more active class, take an active role, participate in every class activity. Those are my expectations, and so that's my description of course requirements. Let's move on. All right, so here's a proposed schedule. The proposed schedule for this, obviously the way that I did it was designed for an 18-week course, and this is an example week structure. I'm not going to go through every single week with you. Most of the weeks look exactly like this. You've got repertoire that we're going to be performing. This is from the first week. And then you've got the listening that's listed there. So for week 1, we're going to do Doggy Doggy, Where's Your Bone? So we're going to start with something that's easy, sort of a So Me and La, sort of So Me and La kind of song. And then we're going to have the box arioso listening because we're starting from, we're going to do the eras of music history chronologically. That's what I was trying to say, and work it in. And so you see there also the standards that we're covering from the 9 MENC national standards. They're going to sing Doggy Doggy, Where's Your Bone? Covers standard 1, singing. And so you'll see this list for every single week, along with the repertoire they're performing and what they're going to be listening to. And it lists all of the standards that we're covering with that. And it's all related to an objective off of the course syllabus. And so then all the questions from the midterm, which we'll see in just a minute, are based on these as well. The schedule is designed to give students repeated experiences with the content. So like, for example, if we envision this class meeting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday using the Ball State paradigm, there's either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or there's Tuesday, Thursday. So it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour. And so instead of giving them a new song to sing every single time, because then there's other things up there, right? That we're going to do solfege introduction, like I'm introducing them to what solfege is. We're singing So, Me, and La so that they get an idea of that. We'll do some, probably use some methods from Dr. Esther's sound connections, which I've done ever since I took advanced choral methods. And I've just loved it. I love his choral or his sound connections method. It's if you don't have it, if you haven't had to use it, it's worth the $40 or so to get the main textbook for it. Because, oh my goodness, it's just a great, it will help you immensely in teaching everything relating to music. It's great. Musical concepts to ages K through 12 and on into adults. It's just so useful. And so you can see there's some improvising already in there for week 1. Week 1, day 1, we're going to be improvising. You'll see also, if you ever have a chance to look through my course syllabus, which right now it's just not in the cards, I think, but I've also tried to include as much of those 2 creative standards, 3 and 4, improvising and composing, as much as possible throughout the proposed schedule. The reason for this is because I don't think, at least in my own teaching at the elementary level, kids don't get enough of that. And so Dr. Esther also brought this up in psychology of music, and also talked about it in the advanced choral methods class I took, where students that come to the university and they want to be L.Ed majors, they're proficient in the content area already for what they need to do. For example, to teach, 3rd grade math. Mostly if you've graduated high school, and I say mostly because I do know some teachers who had learning disabilities and they're maybe not comfortable with teaching third, fourth, and fifth grade math or English or whatever because of their learning disability. And those are specific situations that are valid and real and they exist in the world. But for the most part, you come to university level, knowing all the math you're going to need to know to be able to teach third grade math. You don't need calculus to teach third grade math. Now it's good to know calculus. Calculus I thought was fun when I took it. It was, I mean, it's just, it was interesting to me. But it's just not necessary to teach third grade math. Okay. Not so with music majors, not so with students that come to our universities and as a reflection of their musical education in this country. They're often behind in that area. So they don't get a lot of improvising and composing. So I've tried to put something of that into every week where they're going to be doing some like question and answer, or they have to sit down in front of an instrument. They have to plan out a piece using the pentatonic scale so that they get the idea of composing. Then once I teach them how to notate, they have to improvise or they have to compose, but then they also have to write it down. So that's something that I obviously expect them to do. Then obviously there's listening, and then they're going to get a Baroque era introduction. I've got presentations that I've done before that I'll probably tweak for the collegiate level and use those. So they get some history of the Baroque era. They get a biography of Johann Sebastian Bach, and that covers Standard 9, Understanding in Relation to History and Culture. Okay. And so, like I said, this is designed also to give students repeated experience with the content so they can master it. Every single learning theory I've ever studied is based on the assumption that the students are, or rather, it's really the requirement, because you can see this, it's evidenced, that students need, not even just students, I mean, when we're students, even everybody needs, when you're learning something, repeated experiences with the content. And over time, you will, according to the cognitivists anyway, form your schema, and that is how you will learn to do whatever it is you're learning how to do. But you have to have more than one bite at the apple. You've got to be able to do this more than once. And so that's the reason why you don't see like a song every day. You don't see stuff like that, because I'm also giving them, first of all, other content that's going to be placed in there, but we're also going to continue working on the repertoire. Like I said, performance is the emphasis of this course. The quizzes and exams are built in, and the last 2 weeks are used for the final listening exam, which covers everything we will listen to, and the portfolio presentations. Quizzes. So quizzes I'm going to use as summative checkpoints. The content that I'm going to cover are concepts regarding instrumental and vocal technique. What's your posture supposed to be like? How are you supposed to open your mouth? Where's your tongue go? How do you breathe? Okay, for singing. How about for playing a mallet instrument? How do you grip the mallet? How high do you hold them? What type of motion do you use to strike? You're going to use a wrist motion, nice and easy and accurate, or are you going to go Hulk smash? Okay. These are concepts that, yes, I obviously expect, my elementary kiddos to know, but if they're going to be playing those mallet instruments too, they got to know them too. So that's the reason why I'm doing that. There's writing notation exercises. Okay. Once they learn some takadimi, their quizzes start showing up as, okay, I'm going to write down the takadimi syllables for you, and you have to write the actual rhythm for it using standard notation, traditional notation. So, ta, 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 di, ta, write it down on the staff. Pitch. We're going to go through the pitches, the lines and spaces of both the treble clef and the bass clef. So they have to write, if I say E and it's a treble clef and I say, draw the treble clef. Yep, I'm going to teach them how to draw the clefs too. That's important. So be testing them on that. Affective response essay questions, asking them to tell me, for example, what's your favorite listening we've done so far, and explain why. Tell me why. And then, of course, I am evaluating them with a rubric that goes in, that expects them to do some detail, make it personally meaningful, and to explain with with an intro, body, and conclusion, sort of that 3-point essay format, that you have all that there, and it's structured and it's formal, and and it's worthy of a university setting. And then, of course, listening identification. So the songs we listen to, the musical pieces we listen to, they are going to have to identify those by listening. Now, I'm probably going to be nice about it on the quiz and start each piece from the beginning instead of do aim the laser, as Dr. Steib likes to call it, or Dr. Steib was my ancient music history professor at Ball State. Or, just simply, or drop the needle, as it used to be called, drop the needle. Right into the middle of the song, and then you got to do it from the middle of the song. But this being a course that's supposed to be, it's a 100 level course. I might just decide to be nice about it and start from the very beginning of every song, so they can, so just in case they only listen to the first minute, they have a fighting chance. So here's some rubrics I'm going to share with you. This is the singing rubric for the class. So obviously you can see I'm using some fairly basic language with this. Since I'm recording this on a nice day, after I'm done with this recording, I'm planning on going outside and spending some time in my garden. I do have some plant-based descriptions here for you. And I like the image of the buried seed, because if you get a flat 0 on this, which if you look at the rubric, you notice is a very difficult thing to do. Most of my rubrics are that way. You can get a 0, but you have to be trying to get a 0 in order to get a 0. So, but it's called buried seed. And this is to indicate to the students, this is the same one that I would use with my elementary kiddos, but I think it's appropriate as well here, that you're a seed buried in the ground. It doesn't mean that if you end up in that category, for example, for singing the right notes, if you end up in that category for pitch, it doesn't mean that you're a failure at singing pitch and you should just mouth it for the rest of the time whenever you sing anything. It doesn't mean that. Sing the right notes at the right time. That's not something that, again, it doesn't mean that you'll never sing any words at the right time ever again, and right notes ever again. It doesn't mean that. It means you can still grow into it. That's the reason why I like that image of the seed there. But if you notice, the trend on these are none, some, most, all. From bottom to top, some, none, most, or none, some, most, all. And so therefore, if they miss one, for example, and I usually use words, singing the right words when I explain this to the kids, I use that as the example. You sing all the correct words. Okay, so what happens if you miss one word? You sing all the rest of the right words in the song, but you missed one. Okay, bang, you're down to a 4 on that. I'm going to knock you down a point just because you missed one word. Or even better yet, I'll just be a meanie and give you a 3. I'll bump you down 2 points for missing a word. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. It's my rubric. I can do what I want with it. I wrote it. So what I explain to the kids is I might put you in the middle of a category somewhere. I might put you between categories, right? So instead of budding or blossoming 4 or 5, maybe I give you a 4.5. And if it was a really small word, you said like of instead of for, you saying of instead of for, okay, maybe I'll overlook it even, in that regard. Or maybe it's a 4 3/4, a 4.75, right? Not really going to hurt your grade too much at all, if at all, to have that score on there. So, and another thing when I go through this is, if you take a look, and I poll the elementary kids when I say this, they say, so let's take a look at words, singing the right words to the song. Raise your hand if you've ever sung the right words to a song. And pretty much every hand in the room goes up, and it should, especially if they're in my class, because they've all done it in front of me, so I know they can. And it's like, notice I'm grading you on that. So it's something that you already know how to do. You can do that. Okay. So anyway, this is just an example of how I make the rubric. I'm kind of going into some stories there. I don't want to waste too much time here going through that stuff, but I got tons of stories I can tell. PM me if you want to hear them all. And then the next one is how you sing. So I'm looking for posture, breathing, tone quality. We talk about tall vowels. We talk about how to open the mouth. We talk about where to put the tongue to make the best sound, how to use the air. So you're making a nice, decent sound and you're singing in tune, with good tone quality. You're singing healthily. Vocal hygiene is a big thing with me. And that's a big thing that I'm wanting them to get for the how you sing. especially the tone quality part of it. So here's a xylophone rubric, a sample xylophone rubric. So you see pitch, rhythm, and how you play. The important things here, differences here will be in the how you play. Holding the mallets correctly, using a wrist motion to play, holding the mallets close to the instrument while you play. So this tells them everything they need to do, everything I expect. If they do that, they can get an A on the rubric. It's literally that simple. Okay, the midterm. The midterm is 55 questions, and it covers all the content you see there. Mallet instrument techniques, recorder techniques, singing techniques, fingerings for the recorder. I have blank recorder fingering charts that I have them fill in for note letter names that I demand. Rhythm notation, both orally dictated and written out as Takadimi syllables. Pitch notation, writing notes properly. So forming the note properly is part of the answer for rhythm notation. You have to write, if you have a ta or a quarter note, it has to look like a quarter note. It has to be a filled in note head with one stem, nothing else. The stem has to be connected to the note head. Yeah. Music majors watching this presentation, raise your hand if you're guilty of that. Not connecting stems to note heads. Sometimes, especially if I'm in a rush to write the note, yeah, those things can have quite a gulf between them. Understanding of Takadimi syllables. Again, when I write Takadimi syllables down on the exam, they have to write on a staff. I put a staff in there under the question, so they have to do that. Now I count those as completion items. Those are completion items. They have to fill those in. The pitch notation items are also completion items. Same thing for the recorder fingering charts. Those are completion items because they have to fill in, they have to know what to fill in, and they have to do it, go through and do it. The ranges of Orff xylophones and metallophones. They got to know those. They got to know what a partner song is, ostinato, treble and bass clef note names, listening identification for the Baroque, classical, and Romantic eras. I think there's 5 or 6 listening on the midterm that they got to do. Difference between major and minor. That's one of the essay questions. And then expression of preferences for music. They have to pick one of the listenings we've done so far and explain and pick one of those as their favorite and explain why it's their favorite. And they have to express that that's their preference, but then they have to use examples from the music and they have to make it personally relevant to make it an expressive, or to express why that is what they prefer. And so that becomes an affective response essay question for that. The writing assignment. The writing assignment is to find an additional composer from one of the eras of music that we've studied and pick one of the works, an additional work that they have done, and do a little bit of research on it. The point is to broaden their knowledge of composers and repertoire for the era that they choose. And like I mentioned earlier, it's supposed to be something different from what's covered in class. I recommend listening several times to a recording of the work that they choose. And, you know, I suggest that they use YouTube to find it, to find the recording, because a lot of, especially the older stuff, there's decent recordings on YouTube for that, or they can try the university library. And if they really have a hard time, they can come to me and I can help them find a recording, or even if they're having trouble picking something, I can help them choose a composer and a work so they can get started. I want it to be 1 to 2 pages in length. This writing assignment is not going to be, you know, buku big research paper. 1 to 2 pages in length. Give me some discussion on it. Like I said, the emphasis in this class is performing. The emphasis in this class is the performing skills and the concepts that govern them. I want APA format with at least 2-cited sources. The content should cover the major points of the composer's life and work and provide a brief discussion and description of one of that composer's works. I want correct grammar, spelling, and use of vocabulary appropriate for a university setting. The old adage, don't write how you talk. That's very good, very applicable here. The paper has to have a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. And it has to, I also included a reference to the Purdue OWL website for information on APA. That's just in case students are unfamiliar with it, or if they have questions, they can refer to that. Obviously, they can also email me. But I also put in the syllabus that, hey, if you have trouble with APA, really the Purdue OWL website is going to be more convenient than trying to email me and then waiting for my response. the OWL website will give you an immediate response. And I believe also you can simply put in the information and it generates citations for you correctly according to, I know it'll do it for APA and Chicago Manual. So if any of you watching this aren't familiar with the Purdue OWL website, look it up and play with it for a little bit and see how it works. It's great for citations. It's great for refreshers. I use the OWL website whenever I'm doing papers, for my own academic purposes, just to make sure that I've got the citation format correctly, just to make sure I do that correctly, because I forget some of these rules. Some of these things have so many rules, and you don't use them enough to know them all the time. So you have to look them up and just to make sure you did it right. The writing assignment rubric. What I expect, obviously, and you can see here, I've got some different terminology that I'm using, just to show different terminology that I've used. So you can take a look at this kind of on your own here. But the thing to notice is look down at the total. It's 12 points. Notice I've got 3 categories. 5 points is the highest. Yep. If the paper exceeds the expectations for all requirements in the category, I give them a bonus point. There's bonus points available on the writing assignment. I did that because normally what I do is look at the terms. Proficient, isn't that where we want them? You want them proficient. You don't necessarily want to say, oh, you can't get 100% unless you're advanced. Proficient is 100%. They've met all the requirements. That's 100%. But if they go over and above, then there's bonus points available, and that kind of encourages them to put more work into the assignment because you can get bonus points. And trust me, having more than 100% on an assignment, I've seen it happen with kids' assignments in elementary school, things like this, that really helps their grade. To have more than 100% on a couple of assignments basically makes it so they can't get an F anymore. It's crazy just how much that insulates their grade a little bit because they did some extra work. It really benefits them for a very long time. Okay, that's the writing assignment rubric. Now on to the final project and presentation. It's a portfolio, and then they have to present on their portfolio. The purpose of it is twofold. So the student can see for themselves how they've grown during the course, and so they can express that same thing to others and to myself. So they can come and say, hey, look, this is what I've done. I've collected all these artifacts that have to align with each of the 9 1994 MENC national standards. And it shows how the student has grown in each one. Useful artifacts will include recordings of singing, playing, or improvising. This is what the USB flash drive is for, so that they can use their laptop to record themselves playing, record themselves singing, record themselves improvising, doing things like this to show what they can do. And then they can include that in the presentation and also as part of their portfolio. So obviously the USB flash drive, we would just put the flash drive in the portfolio, the physical flash drive in the portfolio. And then if we wanted to see artifacts for singing or playing or improvising, or even performances of music they've composed, then we could plug the flash drive into a laptop and we could pull it up and we could watch it. And you could see that from pretty much any computer. They could include examples of notation work, samples of original music written during the course, narratives or journals about listenings and composers. That can include affective response journals about the listenings and composers. So these are things that will show that they've grown in those areas. The students will then present their portfolios to the class as part of the final project. Visual aids are required, and the use of PowerPoint or Google Slides is highly recommended. The speaker must be able to be clearly understood during their performance and performance presentation, and must make use of good eye contact, no staring down and reading a paper, must be a dynamic and engaging presentation. So they have to engage their audience. They have to address their audience. They can't just stare down, read the paper, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine, I'm done. And no, because that's not really a dynamic, engaging presentation, and that's reflected in the rubric. So here's some examples of the presentation rubric. This rubric was actually really long because I also included a category there on the left-hand side for every single MENC national standard, in addition to presentation issues. So artifacts, that's for the portfolio. I'm basically just assessing, does the portfolio contain appropriate artifacts for all of the required areas? Did they address all of the areas? And were the artifacts appropriate? Right? So for singing, if your only artifact is one sentence that says, I can sing good, I'm not going to consider that an appropriate artifact because it does not prove that you can actually sing good. So it's not something that is really appropriate for that. So I'm checking for that as well. Presentation delivery. We just talked a little bit about this. The delivery of the presentation is dynamic, engaging, use of eye contact and visual aids, and the speaker can be clearly understood. Okay, presentation content. The presentation covers all the required areas. So all of the required content areas, those 9 MENC national standards. So not only do you have to have artifacts for all those, appropriate artifacts for all those, you also have to cover them all in your presentation. Okay, just making sure that the presentation is truly a representation of what they put in their portfolio. Okay, so this is an example of some of the standards-based categories that I've put in. Playing instruments. So the presentation includes artifacts and discussion on how the learner has grown in instrumental techniques and concepts. So if you look over on the highest achievement side, the growth is clearly evident from artifacts included in the portfolio and from discussion in the presentation. The student includes recordings of performances, discussion of specific techniques that they've learned or that they're using. Those have to be provided. Now, the next step down is growth is evident from artifacts included in the portfolio and in the discussion, okay? But only one of the 2 things that I mentioned, the recordings or discussion of specific techniques or are provided. So you only provided one of those 2, maybe one of those 2 wasn't appropriate. Essentially, you didn't really go with what you were trying to show. The next step down is growth is somewhat evident. Little evidence is provided in support. And then the needs improvement or the buried seed is growth is not evidence from artifacts included in the portfolio or from discussion in the presentation. And if you notice that that's the same thing all the way down, because yeah, if it's not obvious, if it's not evident that you've grown at all, not evident that you've learned anything, not evident that you've gained any ability, then, yeah, there it is. It's, so you need to find the artifacts, put it in the presentation. That's what I'm saying. So, okay, moving on to the next one. I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. So, and then this is at the end, you notice the total is 55 points. This is a pretty hefty assignment, pretty hefty rubric. But this is the understanding in relation to history and culture. Growth is clearly evident from artifacts included in the portfolio and from discussion in the presentation. At least one composer and work are identified and discussed in the presentation. So they have to identify one composer that they learned about and one work, and they have to discuss them. Not just, hey, we did Bach's Arioso. Okay, tell me something about it. Okay, and that's what I'm kind of expecting from that. All right. So this has been an overview of this course that I created called MUSED 195. We've gone through some of the assessments, the quiz description, the midterm, the final project portfolio and presentation. We've gone through the syllabus. It's and you can see that it is a mostly performing oriented course. There is to be determined an evening performance of the Orff ensemble that we create. Where we'll just pick some repertoire that we feel we do pretty well. It'll be a short concert, and then we just go play it. Like I said, this course is designed for non-majors, non-music majors to fulfill a fine arts requirement that is an alternative to the traditional music appreciation course. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I look forward to seeing you all in MUSED 195.